Hello and welcome back to Podcasting as Praxis. I'm David, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm James, my pronouns are they and them.
I'm Rob, mine are he and him.
And I'm Alistair, my pronouns are also he and him.
And we are joined by very special guest, Mick Wright.
Hello.
What are your pronouns?
Oh yeah, my pronouns are he and him. There you go.
Yeah, Mick, thanks very much for coming on. We have such violent delights to look forward to towards the end.
We have real delights.
Yeah, which just if it's within your wheelhouse, then people who are familiar with you will know that it's actually going to be very fucking bad.
Yeah,
but
if I know about it, it's terrible.
Yeah. Sommelier for shit, just the worst possible stuff. You know about it.
Yeah, Mick just likes to have like a quick flick through of the Necronomicon, just like, oh yeah, been here before.
It's fucking light reading. Yeah.
Well, I mean, speaking of the Necronomicon, shall we resurrect some things for our nuggets? Because,
yes, please.
Sometimes I feel like we do too many callbacks to previous episodes, but some of our absolute favorite things are either back from the dead or turns out to never have been dead, or they're vibing, and we love things that vibe. And the thing that I love the most, that has by far the biggest vibes, it is, of course, our beautiful boy. Secretary Ben Wallace has said that the Ajax program is back on track, everybody.
Oh boy, but if Ben Wallace says that's the case, then it must be true.
Yeah, I know. There was a great picture of him in the papers trying to jerk off the Ajax, I think. He was doing some weird hand gestures thing.
That was very good.
Surely the Ajax of all things doesn't need jerking off.
So you've now created a mental image of an Ajax which is perpetually horny with itself, and I'm not sure I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you vibrated that much, James.
Yeah, honestly, the Ajax is basically what if we bolted a gun to a Sibian? It's that good. It's the thing that everybody wants all the time. Small reminder, if you haven't been listening to this podcast, the Ajax is a armored fighting vehicle. It is supposed to be the mainstay of all British land warfare for the foreseeable decades, essentially. And it's a piece of shit that's never worked and will never work. But it's a £5.5 billion contract which has been running for 12 years. And I think we have 12 or something by now, all of whom are incredibly bad, basically because they generate so many vibrations and so much noise that multiple soldiers needed doctors, essentially.
I love that. I love that, Rob. It's so personified to you. You said all of whom there when referring to the Ajaxes. That's fantastic. Ajax-san is having a little bit of difficulty, but don't worry, we'll be fine soon. I'm now picturing Rob with an Ajax body pillow as he curls up at night, and I'm just loving this. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I said. A Sibian
filling it
with
with soldiers.
Does the obverse of that pillow have a cutaway picture of the Ajax?
Sure, but it just shows a soldier getting fried inside.
This is from the BBC, from a recent BBC article. Initial trials were plagued with problems, including excessive noise and vibration. Some of those testing the vehicle complained of hearing loss, and others suffered injuries like white finger, a numbness linked to the use of heavy machinery. More than 300 individuals taking part in the trial had to be assessed for hearing loss, with some having found to be suffering long-term damage. But like I said, don't worry about it. Things have been General Dynamics, the manufacturer, has been on the case and fixing things in terms of the vibration and the noise. And now you might be asking, what have they done?
I was going to say, I think I saw this because isn't their unique solution a comfy chair and some headphones?
Yes, it is. This is from the Times.
Yes.
The British Army claims it had fixed the troubled Ajax armored vehicle program by putting extra cushions in the seats and giving soldiers another pair of ear protectors.
So
giving every soldier a gamer chair. A gamer chair and some Razer headphones. Fuck yes.
No, please, Dave. It's the Catgirl earphones.
I'm just thinking, well, like they've put, it's like they've put some extra throw pillows in there, a little bit of shag carpet, they put a hooker in the corner. It's a whole new vibe in there.
They tried putting some candles in, but unfortunately the vibrations kept on snuffing them out. So
They'll just have to settle for the LEDs then.
Yeah.
So basically, to be inside the Ajax now, soldiers will have to wear 2 sets of ear protectors over each other. The inner one has a cringe piece, so you can talk to each other.
I remove my ear protection to reveal a smaller sub-ear protector. Everyone is tired of this fucking tank.
Now, shall we continue? I love this idea of, like, situational awareness. What is that? Like, fantastic.
I just have this idea of like all the squaddies inside them having like these big like fluffy pink earmuffs over the top. Just it's more of a vibe. This is such a good vibe. However, I should say there are still significant doubts as to whether or not the internal comm system, which I think you'll agree is even more important when you're wearing 2 layers of headphones, whether or not that internal comm system works at all to begin with.
So you're just gonna need to bring your little whiteboard and marker pen so you can just write that shit down and show your show your squad.
However, incredibly, and this is from the Times again, the things that General Dynamics has not touched or tried to fix in any significant way, the suspension, the engine, or the tracks. So none of the root causes, the causes, will remain very, very good.
The causes are very good. Oh, I fucking love this thing. This is the most fucked bit of machinery the British Army's ever fucking seen. And it's so good.
And according to 2 defense experts on Twitter who are often cited in relation to the Ajax, Francis Tusa and John Hawkes, apparently the vibrations are still... It's possible that they're still bad enough to just like shake loose the connecting cables, but, they don't impact...
It truly baffles the mind to try and comprehend just how hard this motherfucker vibrates. Like, it's gonna feel like a fucking magnitude 3, like fucking earthquake as it approaches on the battlefield.
And I think you got it wrong. I think what's going to happen is they're going to roll it up to like the joint like NATO exercises, etc. The other soldiers are going to be like, okay, it looks kind of impressive, but why have you put a massive bass sound system in it? And they're like, oh no, that's no sound system. Like that's the kind of level of vibration I'm expecting to come from it.
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe James, you're onto something. Maybe that's the answer. That like actually General Dynamics has subcontracted the whole thing to like West Coast Customs, and they've just put in like 10,000 speakers for no reason whatsoever.
See, my mind went in a different way. You said maybe that solution. I'm like, oh, what? Put in a sound system and have it vibrate at exactly the opposite frequency to the Ajax's vibrations, like noise cancelling Ajax. Might work better than what we've got.
I just really like the idea of the Ajax bumping over the Russian steppes to like Steel Dre or something like that.
The Venga bus is coming, surely.
Finding the resonance frequency of Kaliningrad.
But don't worry, when I say it could still shake loose the cables don't do anything important. They're only related to site radio stabilization and a couple of other parts that I'm sure aren't very critical to driving this thing anywhere. But these are not the
elements
of
vibrations. Stabilization's a necessary part of the whole thing that vibrates.
But
I can only imagine that system gets a bit fucking worse with the stabilization switched off.
The vibration and the noise are like not the only unresolved issues, again, according to the Times. Sources claim that
but
the complexity...
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, exactly. This builds on something that we've discussed about it before, but I'm glad to see that this is still unfixed. Sources claim that the complexity of the turret system makes it vulnerable to bumps when moving across country, i.e. it might still not be able to fire while moving. And it also,
I don't know much about how tanks operate, but it is, as far as I understand it, one of the major advantages of these kinds of vehicles is that they can fire while on the move.
Yeah.
But I
Usually
mean,
helps.
like we can always go back to like the Napoleonic times when and we get a bunch of horses to just like drag a cannon around. I think that, you know, would do for a comeback.
I feel like this would still be a step down though, because the fucking tank would just vibrate the horses to death. Just turn them into fucking glue directly.
Scares the horses from 3 miles away.
And also, in an incredibly MOD touch, it turns out ammunition is expensive because there's only one supplier.
Fucking incredible.
Jesus
Is this list nearly over? This is like the fucking Brian Butterfield Defence Procurement Programme.
But like, don't worry, there's way more like in the process of being built, because apparently General Dynamics has like 400 hulls that are ready and about 100 plus turrets that are ready in the factories to be like put together. But before they go any further, General Dynamics is demanding a £1.4 billion payment, and otherwise they're just going to leave this, I guess, I don't know, on somebody's doorstep or something.
Now, if I was feeling malicious, one might call this blackmail. or like a hostage situation.
I think, Alistair, you may be misunderstanding General Dynamics, because according to one of their spokespeople, they said that essentially we've thrown
this
in
is
some
not
pillows.
a hostage situation.
No, they say, look, we've put into some throw pillows and gave everybody some earmuffs, so that's sufficient grounds for the MOD to resume payments. Yeah, what are you complaining about? It's fine.
My tank that has "this is not a hostage situation" on the side of it is answering a lot of questions already, raised by my tank.
However, don't worry about it, because it'll take at least another 2 years before the Ajax, and this is according to MOD own estimates, so like it's probably 10. So
for realsies this time. Final.
Yeah, so 2025 could be the year that, you know, we finally shuffle loose this mortal coil as a nation. So that's the first thing that's resurrected or just still shambling on, and I love it, and I love the Ajax, and may it never cease to vibrate. The other thing that I thought had been killed off, but has been resurrected. British Volt is back. This time in POG form.
I feel like we're always talking about this fucking thing.
I don't really
if listeners have noticed that this is the point where the podcast begins to drop in quality, because as you can see, we've got a season here where we're quite heavy on guest appearances. We're recycling old content. So I'm sorry, folks, but this is the beginning of the end of this.
Am I Poochie? Is that what's happened? Am I Poochie? Do I have to return to my home planet?
No, like in our defence, that's Britain. No, Britain has reached a stage where it's recycling old content, as we kind of covered extensively in recent episodes. Yeah. So, yeah.
So if you're listening,
1995.
So if you want to listen to the full thing, episode 171 is your friend. Essentially, they've been bought out of administration by a new company that has some interesting directions, and I will say this is closer
They've
to
dug
like
a second ditch.
Possibly, but
Possibly.
towards the end, we're going to get into like something a bit more tinfoil than I normally get, but there's some weird angles to this, essentially. Very brief roundup. British Volt was going to be a massive gigafactory to create lots of batteries for all the electric cars that Britain was going to need and produce in the coming decades. The whole thing fell to shit because it was created by people who had no experience of the industry, and it was just, I don't know, it's stupid in the altogether, and it collapsed at the end of last year. Under the weight of its own failure. However, it's been resurrected because there's a successful bid from a mixed US-Australian company called Recharge Industries. They paid
That's an ominous combination of countries.
Isn't it? It's a cost fucking energy.
So they
all the money of the US and all the racism of Australia. Fuck yes, together at last.
Yes, basically. So they paid a 30 million bid for the remaining intellectual property of British Volt, and crucially the site, as we've discussed in the original episode. The site near Blythe is... Yeah?
Hold on a second, Rob. Isn't the IP of this fucking company just some fucking samples that they sent out to car manufacturers that didn't really want them?
Maybe. I couldn't tell. But I mean, it does retain some issues and some burdens from falling over previously. This is from the Financial Times. Taking on the business will be complicated for any buyer because of the huge cash flow outlays needed to take over the old Britishvolt strategy. Though why you would want to is a mystery to me. Or start from scratch. The retained
fill in the old
employees-
ditch and then dig it again.
Yeah, but this time with like sharper edges and maybe less throw pillows. It's more of a minimalist aesthetic.
We like to see Britishvolt rebranding its brand of digging a ditch slightly less crisp edged.
Well, they are rebranding, but or being rebranded. This story gets way weirder as I keep talking about it. So among the other problems that it has is the retained employees, which are only 26 out of 300, but they do include many of the company's highly paid battery experts. So you do take on the wage bill pretty much immediately. And this is according to the administrators.
What are they rebranding to?
It's a Britishvolt, but with some ominous thunderbolts in the logo.
Yes, that's not a bad way. That's not a bad way of framing it.
For fuck's sake, no.
but yeah, Ernst & Young estimated that Britishvolt itself estimated that in order to make it to the end of 2023 as a going concern with its strategy, it would have needed an extra £200 million. So, Recharge Industries is buying this shell of a company with massive liabilities and is probably going to need to put in I don't know, assuming they completely change the strategy, but it's like $100 million investment or something this year to come. So it's a bit weird because Recharge Industries has managed to assure Ernst & Young, the administrators, that they have sufficiently deep pockets to invest, which is genuinely quite odd because according to the FT, is even though they said, look, we have the $30 billion to pay you, it took them days and days to actually get the money together in a bank account to pay someone, which doesn't bode well.
You know what it's like? You owe someone 30 quid and they're like, oh, can you pay me back today? And you're like, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Then a week later, they're still asking you and you just forget to get round to it again. These things happen.
So not only do they have these running costs, which are anywhere between 50 and probably 200 million a year, but the idea of Britishvolt originally was to have a £4 billion factory on this site near Blythe. But, maybe they have more money than I think they do because they did have the support, this is according to The Guardian, of Ian Botham, the former cricketer who apparently was the UK's trade envoy to Australia until quite recently.
This is such a deeply stupid country.
It's not the only stupid country though, because Recharge Industries, like I said, it's also a US kind of thing. They at the same time they have promised to build yet another gigafactory, but this time in Australia, which is supposed to be delivered in the second half of New Year to start production. It hasn't yet though. And it's doing that in cooperation with another company under the same umbrella of the holding company. So it's really weird. The Recharge is building this second factory in Australia, but it's not just a battery factory, just for building cars and car engines and stuff, car batteries. It has this very specific purpose. It wants to build these car batteries China-free.
Uh-huh.
And if you're wondering what that is, basically Australia produces a shit ton of lithium. Normally they send it to China for primary processing or turning into batteries altogether. So this is to stop that. But not only do they not want to use China, which has 80% of the world's electric battery manufacturing capacity, they also want to not use any materials from Russia. And weirdly enough, I've spent way too much time today trying to dig up stuff about Recharge Industries and its parent holding company called Scale Facilitation Partners. Is the one thing that Recharge Industry definitely has that I can say for sure is that they have an advisory board and a lot of senior positions stacked with like either active or just retired very senior Australian and American senior military officials, like former Green Berets, generals, colonels, things of this nature. And I'm guessing that it's probably...
I'm sure there's nothing to read into there.
And I'm guessing it's probably also entirely a coincidence that the UK, US, and Australia have recently signed a big new defense treaty, essentially to stop China or whatever the hell that is.
It straight up is to stop China, by the way, because like the Biden administration has more or less decided, like China is now a rival in a serious way, and they've done a whole bunch of things. We should do an episode on that at some point, actually. Now that we're talking about it, but anyway, carry on, Rob.
So also, by the way, and this is in some of like the electric power battery trade publications that I read today. I have a very exciting life. One of the new added goals of the revived British Volt will be to supply military customers. So
it's not just there's military applications like directly, like not even just using the company as like a proxy for defanging like Chinese production of batteries or whatever, but to literally manufacture weapons with it. Hell yes.
This is actually great.
Everything in this country either has to be a fucking landlord or an arms dealer.
No, like this is actually great. This is wonderful because my third eye's just cracked open and I've seen to the future, and we're going to have an invasion of Russia in the winter where all the Ajax's batteries go flat. And it's going to be spectacular. It's going to be wonderful. I'm extremely
hybrid Ajax. Yes, that is a synthesis of content that I require.
Yes.
We take out the weak, fleshy, vibration-sensitive human and replace it with a smart, intelligent, beautiful and perfect artificial intelligence. And these sick batteries as well.
So it's kind of hard to like find data on like Recharge Industries because it's privately held. So like I can't work out like how much money this company actually has to like not only like rejig British Volt but also to do this Australian side. So I found this article in Bloomberg that just sort of vaguely says, oh yeah, it's funded by pension funds, investment funds, etc., etc. But like I said, I can't find how much money this company actually has to like build a 4 billion car battery factory in Blythe. However, what I did find...
I've got a source for you, Rob. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
However, what I did find after some amount of digging, I found a 2022 SEC statement made by Scale Facilitation Partners, which is the umbrella company under which sits Recharge Industries. They share the same CEO. The CEO of Recharge and the CEO of Scale Facilitation Partners is a guy is an ex-PricewaterhouseCoopers partner called David Collard. And he signed this document stating that Scale Facilitation Partners, so the parent company, definitely has less than 1 billion under management in assets. So I don't understand the mathematics of this, but I'm happy to, get in touch if you know the financial structures of Recharge Industries. The other thing that I did manage to find, though, about like the parent company. So British Volt is now owned by Recharge, and Recharge is owned by Scale Facilitation Partners. But Scale Facilitation is not only into like batteries; they're into a bunch of other shit. So this is from their website. They have less than 1 billion in assets, but they have been investing in some other things, including a new smartwatch that can screen for respiratory infections combined with remote monitoring and algorithmic machine learning.
Yeah, I'll have to go to my doctor and they say, hey, can you breathe into this watch?
They also own or part-own an AI company called Reopen that does procurement and health screening for like US public buildings, mainly, I think, schools. I think it's like a COVID thing. And they also
I hate this so much.
And they also own a PPE supply company with military and large supply companies, which they said we started out as a micro-sized Australian company, which I genuinely think means literally a guy in a van with, a small trader license.
All their borrowers.
I started out I started out with nothing, just a shirt on my back and my van, and now I'm an international arms dealer.
I love the idea of just like you're sitting at home and you hear the music and it's like, oh, right, the COVID reopening relief man has come around. Do you want to go buy a 99 and a respiratory watch? Like, go for it. Just fantastic. Loving this.
There is no greater Australian-American combo business vibe than guy in a ute, but he's got lots of guns in the back.
I believe they call that a synthesis.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I all I can say is I kind of hope that like this company's vision statement is just like Mad Max Fury Road, but like with electric cars. I think that would just be cool.
The more banal a company name is, the more evil they are. Rule, I think, is at work here, right? Scale Facilitation Partners has to be a company that will end up rendering humans, right? That's what's going to happen.
In stunning resolution, I assume. Humans as you've never seen them before. Oh, Jesus.
Definitely as you've never seen them before. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I love to wear my Soylent watch to work until it goes ping. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe these are the people who are going to build the in time, the smartwatches that we wear under our skin.
Rob, no. No.
I'm just picturing David with a rolled up newspaper at this point, like, disciplining Rob, who in turn turns around and takes out on Destructo Dog. These things.
Oh dear.
Anyway, so that's a little update on some old favorites. But I thought we should read together with Mick because apart from that, it's always a joy to have you on. I thought we should read an article.
That's a lot. It's not a joy to have me on. Come on.
It is a joy to have you on.
I bring suffering and pain. I'm like a one-man horseman of the apocalypse, like the horse guy of the apocalypse.
Mick, at least it's not a Sinan episode. We don't have a full book.
That's true.
It's just an article.
That's true.
Yeah.
Love you, Sinan, but for fuck's sake, like.
Yeah, it's like if the horseman of the apocalypse, like Sinan is death, and you're like Wimmy War, Mick, something like that.
I was going for pestilence,
so it's like,
but I'll
pestilence, surely, yeah.
Yeah, actually, okay, yeah, fair.
A secret fifth horseman of the apocalypse to spare.
A fifth columnist, usually in the Times.
So the reason we asked Mick to come on today is there was a piece published, I think, last week in the New Statesman, and we love the New Statesman because it's a piece that really examines that sits down, looks at its own navel, and just spends a lot of time picking lint and saying, the publishing industry, it's really good actually, and except for all these woke types that are around.
The New Statesman is the Spectator that doesn't know it's the Spectator.
Yes. I think that's
Remember the last good thing that anyone at the Spectator did when George Eaton got what's his fucking face? Like
Roger
just made
Scruton.
him look a complete
Scruton
made him look a complete dickhead, and Eaton just got complete shit as a result from that publication.
Yeah, and got a special promotion demotion.
So the piece is written by Harry Lambert, and it's called How Barry Weiss Broke the Media. And this is nominally about media in the US, but it doesn't take much thinking to be like, that seems to apply to, Britain a lot. But I think maybe Mick sort of like start us and definitely the listener off if they don't know. Who the hell is Barry Weiss?
Well, there's something else, actually, that you need to do before that, which is very important to understanding why Harry Lambert is writing about Barry Weiss, right? Because Harry Lambert was on my Nepo Babies map, because Harry Lambert's parents are super big deals. One of them is Jenny Russell, the Times columnist, but that's not so important. His father is Stephen Lambert, who invented stuff like Gogglebox and Wife Swap. So to understand how little Harry Lambert has to worry about making a living, you need to understand that his father is richer than God and just invents TV formats constantly.
Before we move off, though, I do want to say that anyone who hasn't seen it needs to go and look up Mick's Nepo Babies map of. Is it mostly UK?
It's mostly UK, but I'm doing a big update next month, and I may be adding a bridge to the US because there's a sort of point where it'll bridge over nicely. I thought I'd just try and ruin their spring, so that's the aim. So
get it now, and you can enjoy the DLC when it comes out soon.
Yeah. So Barry
get a season pass to make Wright's corkboard and red wire.
I'd like to sit down. I'd like to congratulate Mick to being the very first person to manage to translate Dark Souls DLC into a written medium. Well done. Very impressed.
I can't take
Scholar of the First Sin does
but
it quite well, doesn't
did you see how insanely mad they got about it? Because it was
it was so much fun.
And what's really interesting is like that is something where I did very little editorializing. Like I write stuff all the time, which is very openly hostile to them, but that made them so much more upset. It's just here are some facts.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. As we know, facts have a left-wing bias.
It also had the classic.
It's fine when they say the quiet parts out loud. That's fine. But when you say the really quiet part out loud, that's not fine.
Yeah, it was also interesting. It was a bit like that thing, the idiots say about modern art, where they were like, "Well, anyone could do this." I'm like, "Yeah, that's true, but you're not though." Like, and the worst ones were people who are the worst ones are people who aren't beneficiaries of the Nepo Baby stuff. But like, say Luke Bailey from The Independent, who I know and I've got on well with in the past, who's like, well, actually, the issues in the media are much bigger than this. And then, of course, people said to him, all right, mate, what are those? No reply, because, And the point of it was people going, well, it's actually more about privilege, etc., etc. And it's like, no, the map shows that. The map illustrates that. It's saying, oh, look at these family connections, but it does illustrate the privilege thing.
Yeah, but Mick, privilege springs out of the ground, like, autochthonously. Like, it's just one of these things that, it's like being struck by lightning. And we can't argue with forces of nature like this. And it's frankly embarrassing that you should even try.
Yeah. And also, Mick, to kind of make it clear, like, you calling them all a bunch of cunts is fine. But you questioning their divine right to rule by revealing the seedy underbelly of it, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
Get with the times,
that's
man.
True. Anyway, their tactics are so bad. Like, the best the tactic would have been to just ignore it. I genuinely thought it would just hang around our, like, corner of Twitter with people going, look at this. And it so quickly was into their area, and I was like, wow. Like, you cannot just ignore it. Like...
No,
yeah,
they're so thin-skinned. They're all so thin-skinned that they have to.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's the same sort of territory. It's the same sort of territory as when, like, Owen Jones brings up the fact that there sure is quite a lot of people who went to private school in the media industry, isn't there? And everyone loses their fucking rag about how hard they worked. And it's the exact same thing, is it not?
Well, that came up with this because I went to Thetford Grammar School, right? I've never said I didn't, and I always make a big point of saying I did, because what's the point of hiding stuff? It's really weird to do that. And then immediately I got Roald Dahl's grandson going, I didn't go to university at all. He went to
Hey, look, Mick, that's not fair.
He went to Eton, and he cosplays as a special constable by flying in from Jordan, where he is now a member of the Jordanian royal family, to pretend to be a cop. So it was just incredible to be told, well, you and I are the same. And I was like...
you need to check your privilege there, Mick.
This is fascinating.
Mick, leave the tiara prince alone. He's fine. He's just a special boy. He's trying his best. Like,
he just
why
wants
have you got
his treats of being a special constable. Imagine
what's
that.
happened? What's happened here? What's happened here is that all of the journalists are sitting in a big sandbox, having a grand old time, building their little sand castles and shoveling sand into buckets. And Mick's just rocks up and gone, why are you guys sitting in all this cat shit? And they've just absolutely cannot abide the fact that he's pointing out that all this cat shit is sitting all around them, and it actually makes them stink quite badly.
And talking about metaphors around cat shit, let's talk about Barry Weiss.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
So, Barry Weiss, born March 1984, which makes her 2 months younger than me. So, let's just get it out of the way now. I'm clearly just jealous of her success. Let's just understand that before I get into this. So she went to Columbia University, and the important thing about her time at Columbia University, she was part of a group called Columbians for Academic Freedom, which was basically about harassing academics that had Arab backgrounds, particularly Professor Joseph Massad, a Jordanian academic that she claimed had intimidated her. When there was a review done by the university, they found that there was, bad things on both sides, as you might expect they would, but particularly that pro-Israeli students had been heckling professors, constantly. Weiss basically attacked the findings of that. And guess what? All of this got her a lot of attention in the press. And this was in 2004, total precursor to a lot of the stuff we saw in politics in the UK in 2015. 2007, she went and worked for Haaretz and Forward. The interesting thing is, Haaretz now absolutely hates her and regularly writes pieces about what a dick she is. So that's interesting. Then she went on and became senior news and politics editor at The Tablet, another made a major Jewish publication. 2013 to 2017, she was at the Wall Street Journal. Now, what's interesting about the article we're going to read is people say, she was basically unknown books editor at the Wall Street Journal. That's absolute horseshit. She was deputy to Brett Bedbug Stevens, who she followed to the New York Times.
Oh, that guy.
People knew who she was even when she was at the Journal. And Brett Bedbug Stevens, previously called Palestinians mosquitoes, and has a long history of defending racists, so do check that out. Then 2017 to 2020, she's at the New York Times, having followed Stevens there. Spent her whole time attacking what she called the student left. March 2018, wrote a column called "We're All Fascists Now," which, is literally true in her case, but what she meant was that we, the left wing, are hugely intolerant of the opinions of fascists, which is also true. Then in May 2018, she did a classic column now called "Meet the Renegades of the Intellectual Dark Web," which is when she starts talking about all those fuckers.
About how Jordan Peterson had some really important ideas that everybody should listen to.
100%. And that column had to be corrected because a large part of it relied on tweets from a fake Antifa Twitter account. Obviously, that didn't stop her in any way from progressing onwards. In 2020, she resigned from the New York Times after having spent months and months attacking her own colleagues in a desperate attempt to get fired. But she wasn't fired, so then she had to pretend that she was quitting for ethical reasons because the New York Times was being edited by Twitter. And she did a big public resignation letter, which, as we know, is a classic move in the "I have been cancelled" tour. The FT described her as a self-styled free speech martyr. Then in 2021, she compared herself to Galileo. So there you go. And then later that same year, she founded Common Sense, which is a Substack that is now metamorphosed, much like a cancer cell does, into a publication called The Free Press, which has all sorts of maniacs writing for it. And then in November 2021, she and the other members of the Free Press and the intellectual dark web said they were going to start a university in Austin, although it won't convey degrees and does not exist. Chapo rightly called it Barry Weiss's Bovine University. And she has said quite a few times that she's happy to be called an unhinged Zionist. So that is Barry Weiss. The other background to say before this article is that this is the latest in a long series of articles about Barry Weiss. There was one last month by the Times' in-house bedwetter, James Marriott, a man who has to wear Huggies to work. He wrote one which was a profile of Barry Weiss, but he actually got to talk to her, whereas Harry Lambert just had to slobber all over her without her even giving him an interview. There you go. Hopefully that's a good background for you.
I think that's a good background, and if you're wondering what she's up to now, like her imprint and her like media empire is essentially responsible for that new J.K. Rowling podcast series called The Witch Trials against J.K. Rowling. That's her.
Yeah, the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, which is presented by a former member of the Westboro Baptist Church who did what we might be familiar with from the Tommy Robinson days of pretending that you've been de-radicalized. She's just been radicalized in a different direction.
Yep.
It
Anyway,
really is. It really is just like a spider web of literally the worst people on Earth. It's truly.
Yeah, but what
like,
if? But Alistair, instead of saying it's a spider web of the worst people on Earth, what if it was actually us, the censorious left, that want to stop common sense centrist answers from coming into press? Because let me just start reading from Harry Lambert's piece. A fight is raging at the New York Times, a fight that has been raging for years across American media. The questions raised by this battle are fundamental. What can a journalist report on? What can a paper publish? In the past fortnight, dozens of unionized New York Times contributors signed an open letter criticizing the paper's coverage of trans issues, singling out some of their colleagues by name. Now, that sounds awfully familiar, like some papers we know here in the UK. In response, the paper's editors made clear that the paper stood behind its coverage. Now, some of its leading journalists, including the chief White House correspondent, have published a letter in reply, criticizing the paper's union and arguing, "We are journalists, not activists. That line should be clear." Because, journalism is just reporting facts, like the New York Times always does.
I mean, I always find these like appeals to like facts very unconvincing, because like these people like to think they have no ideology, right? They think that like they're just sensible centrists who just come at the universe with an open mind and only absorb the truest of facts, disregarding the fact that ideology is, everyone has one, and an ideology means that you treat certain facts as more relevant than others. And this is just a concept that is so completely alien to them that, like, every other word that comes out of their mouth after they talk about being, free speech and, all this shit.
Facts-based, just reporting what's out there.
I was just going to say, I take umbrage at all of that, because I have no ideology. All of what you just said is not pertinent. Do you know what does matter? The tone you used there was really problematic, Alistair.
I'll have you know I was perfectly civil there, James.
No, I think you were incredibly aggressive, and it's very, very clear that you hate certain minorities. That's just come through in your tone.
The way they treat ideology is a bit like when there was smoking in pubs, right? Like, if you just were in the pub, you would not even eventually you become unaware of the smoke. But when you come out of it, other people are like, you stink. And that is what these people are like. They are they're just in, it's like when you talk to people about newsrooms and they say, well, no one told me what to write. No one tells me what to write. We've all heard it so many times. But yeah. I've been in newsrooms, and it's true, nobody tells you what to write, but you're pretty aware of where the third rail is, and if you stand on it, you're dead. And you don't have to be told, it is in the walls of the place, it is everywhere. It's like people say, I've never met Rupert Murdoch, I've written for the Times for 20 years, and it's like, yeah, the reason you have is you've never said anything that's pissed off Rupert Murdoch. Because if you did, you wouldn't have written there for 20 years. And the pretense that you would is laughable.
These tensions have bubbled over for half a decade. All of the fury playing out on social media has an antecedent in the story of Barry Weiss.
I do like the use of half a decade there to establish 5 years. It's just such a meaningless embellishment of a period of time, which isn't, in the grand scheme of things, that long.
The other thing that's worth saying about this...
had the CV energy.
The other thing that's worth saying about this article, and Harry Lambert in particular, is when I was making the Nepo Baby map, I got unsolicited messages from multiple people who work in the New Statesman saying, make sure this guy's on there. He's such a dickhead. He's such a dickhead. Even people who should be fully on his team. And also someone else said to me, oh yeah, we tried to get him fired from somewhere, but we were told he was too important to be fired. Like he was too connected to be fired. He's like the alpha and omega of why this nepotism stuff is a problem. Apparently, also when he was at York University, like he really despised people, who went to state schools, all that kind of stuff. So, like, when you hear the bits from this article, it's worth knowing.
Many American journalists, along with others, loathe Barry Weiss. Their dislike is axiomatic. They do not need to refer to her by name when they traduce her online. They all know who they're talking about. Bafflingly awful, even for her, wrote one Mail reporter after a piece by Weiss in 2019 that they had all decided was very bad. By then, anything she did was bad by default. Like an infant in a book report, the Man affirmed, safe in the knowledge that his view of this female journalist was almost universally shared by his media set, at least among those who felt able to tweet.
He's making a really subtle point there. I don't know if you picked up on it at all.
Is it that Barry Weiss can't fucking write?
It's like reading some real sort of classic second wave feminism there from Harry. Incredible work, brilliantly done.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
Wheat, a point of order and a Subri.
Like, as if everyone was fucking groaning that it was a woman who was speaking. No, it was just Anna Soubry. No one wanted to fucking hear from very specifically. Oh, fuck's sake.
In trying to destroy Weiss, the media set made her. Since 2017, she's gone from being an unknown books editor at the Wall Street Journal to the founder of one of the biggest political platforms on Substack via the opinion pages of the New York Times.
Wait, I'm sorry. Is this guy going to talk about how she's been cancelled?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, do you know what I would love to be? I would love to be destroyed to the point that I have £2.5 million in reader revenue a year. That'd be amazing.
Yes.
Destroy me. Please destroy me to that level. I would love it. I'm begging you to destroy me to that level.
Right, there's the show preview.
The venture has also attracted outside funding from major investors in, friends of Barry Weiss tell me, both the San Francisco tech class and an older generation of Jewish backers in New York who see Barry Weiss as a voice of sanity in a journalistic generation they do not understand.
The friends of Barry Weiss are all just Barry Weiss doing funny voices and wearing little mustaches.
Yeah. In December, we haven't really talked about this, but it's boring and, it's snooze essentially. In December, Vice was granted access by Elon Musk to what later became known as the Twitter Files. The first installment of which concerned a series of internal documents detailing Twitter's decision to suppress news coverage about Hunter Biden's leaked laptop in the weeks before the 2020 election.
Sorry. But later became known as No Motherfucker. It was immediately known as that because that's what the hashtag the people were fucking posting.
That's what they called it themselves.
Using.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the reason it didn't go anywhere is there was no story there. There was nothing there.
Boring.
There was
painfully
nothing
boring.
There.
Like, this is how a website works.
A tech company, when told by the FBI, we think this is, you need to take this down. Yeah, unfortunately that's how it works. It's dog shit, but that's how it works. There was nothing interesting there. It's just because Elon Musk is confused by how an actual company works, given that the things he runs don't represent look like companies.
I think it's quite bold of Barry Weiss to come out and say that we should dismantle the security state apparatus.
However, fortunately for Barry Weiss, the release of these documents led to her Twitter audience all but doubling. She added 450,000 followers in a fortnight. And I'm assuming that those are 450,000 followers who are all very interested in Hunter Biden's laptop for entirely normal reasons. Weiss has left New York for Los Angeles, relocating there with her wife, Nellie Bowles, another journalist who felt that she was forced to flee the city's media by a certain social milieu. You are dating a Nazi, one New York Times editor is reported to have howled at Bowles after she and Weiss started seeing each other. A fucking Nazi.
Reported by whom?
It would be...
This is maybe an annoying point to make, but when I was editing stuff, and when I was an editor, I'd be saying, reported by what? By whom? That sentences like that are, you just say, well, who reported by whom?
Oh,
You
well, it's
can't-
a Labour source make. It's fine. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
but you can't even. But that is worse. That is worse than even than saying a Labour source, because what he's got there is it just is ether. It's just like, I was standing around and something whispered to me that someone once called her a Nazi. Like,
Came
who?
to me in a dream.
Yeah, who, motherfucker? Tell me. Go on. Because you can't. Because you're making it up.
Listen, if it was good enough for a reason to invade Iraq, it's good enough for this article.
I mean, this is essentially like, this is just the it's the same trick as the Guido Fawkes pipeline. It's like somebody makes up some random shit, then it gets reported in Guido Fawkes, and then the Times can say, well, it's been reported somewhere else, and then that's how you
exactly.
launder it through into, like, you know, reputable papers.
Yeah, and once it's been in the New Statesman like this, and he'll have got it from some other reporter that said this, it then eventually just accretes a level of like respectability until people say, well, it definitely happened because 3 places said it did, and then you chase it back and you find there's nothing, there's no one it's tied to.
I mean, it's a nice little sample of like how the media in like at large works, like this, because this like methodology could equally be applied to fucking anti-Semitism under Corbyn. That story about the was it that Muslim family that supposedly like adopted a Christian girl and all that shit.
The Andrew Norfolk thing. This week with the claim, you know, that the trans woman had said, I'm going to wipe my hands on my penis, when it turns out she said, I'm going to write my hand on my jeans. But that's been in one Daily Mail thing so far and an Evening Standard story. By the end of the week, it will be in 15, 20 stories, guaranteed, and then it becomes a true statement. And it doesn't matter how much we shout and say, it's not true, here's why it's not true, because it just becomes, you know, another... This is like folk tales. They're just telling themselves these folk tales.
Woo.
I enjoyed that one, David.
I did like that too, David. You got a sensible chuckle from me.
Very gauche is where you are.
I find the hatred baffling, said Andrew Sullivan, who also gave up a prized column in the New York media to move to Substack. Andrew Sullivan, if you were wondering, is another like right-wing shit who helped like put the bell curve and like that race science shit into like, you know, the public conversation.
Who you should
Also,
say,
I think it might be a bit...
yet another situation where any decent publication, which obviously New Statesman isn't, you would contextualise who Andrew Sullivan is. You don't assume the reader knows who they are. But he hasn't, because if he did, he'd have to say Andrew Sullivan, who is widely considered a mad racist, which might undermine his, you know, like position in this of how brilliant Barry Weiss is.
Contribute to the science of race.
Editor of Eugenics Monthly, Andrew Sullivan says.
Asked to explain the feeling against Barry Weiss, Sullivan suggests that she is a young Jewish lesbian mother, and if you have those characteristics, you are supposed to be very left, and she isn't. The other obvious factor is jealousy.
I just did a sigh which made it sound like I was a large inflatable just deflating. I just...
I mean, it's just. I mean, I do love to just beat around the bush of like. Actually, it's just very easy to hate someone that supports apartheid. It's very, very simple.
The fury some feel is easily heard on local podcasts such as Chapo Trap House, a show hosted out of Brooklyn by 3 once young men.
Makes it sound like a corner shop.
What? 3 once young...
By the way, all them... I looked up to check when I was tweeting about this terrible article. They're all either just... they're all either late 30s or just in their early 40s. But so this game of like, oh, they're ancient. These 70-year-old maniacs on this podcast that's only listened to in, you know, 3 blocks in Brooklyn. Like, what are you talking about? Chapo Trap is the vast, internationally successful, hugely profitable... When they're talking about how profitable Barry Weiss is, the free press is, right? Have a look at how much Chapo makes. Jesus.
Yeah. It is farcical, isn't it?
I always hate talking about her, one of the hosts says to the other two on one of the many episodes in which the trio painstakingly dissect an article or an announcement by Weiss. Because there's just nothing there, just an absolute zero. Weiss is, says another one of the men, so fucking vacant, just an empty case.
I mean, just to go back to the, like, once young men, particularly in the US, like, compared to the fucking gerontocracy that runs that country, they're positively, like, cherubic. Do you know what I mean?
But in our media, most columnists are in their 50s or 60s, right?
Yeah.
Like, they'd be young. Stick them on the Times, they'd be the younger columnists. Like,
Yeah.
Apart from James Marriott, who is still covered in amniotic fluid. Apart from him, they'd be amongst the younger ones.
Look, at least he's respectful and brings the breast milk in the suitcase.
But the last, let me give you the last sentence of this paragraph because it's fucking incredible. Because this is where he does some ass covering. On this occasion, it was Weiss's attempt to set up a new university in Austin in 2021 that they were disgusted by. Parentheses, a friend of Weiss's later concedes that the university is currently little more than a summer school. Multiple members of its advisory board have since quit. Oh, so they were right.
Just to go back as well, that Weiss says another of the men. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, if you're trying to fucking own them, don't identify them as men here. Identify them as podcasters. You set yourself up with it. The own was right there, and you just went right over it because you thought you had a better one, and you didn't. Shameful.
I've cut for brevity some paragraphs about her upbringing and stuff because it's frankly not very interesting.
Something I did want to cover just quickly though is the thing where he quotes from the podcast, right? And he quotes all the quotes he has are all where they're swearing, right? It's just bullshit and fun and whatever. But they're so mimsy that they star them out.
They
right?
asterisk it, yeah.
So either right, don't use the quotes where they're swearing because you're like too, milk-fed to, like, quote... Like, the readers of the New Statesman are nominally adults, right? They may not have the brain function of an adult, but they are legally adults. And so, like, my attitude is, if adults are reading what I write and I put a swear word in there, I'm going to respect the person who's reading it and go, okay, there's the word fuck. Are you okay with that? Like, instead of starring it out. And the other thing is, I went back and listened to that episode of Chapo, and it's like... they make really good, solid points about why she's ridiculous.
It's a good episode. They do their homework on that one. It's a good
episode. But he wants to frame it as, they just swear and slag her off for no reason. It's like, no. If you listen, they make... But you can't put those arguments in this piece because he is not capable of saying, they say this, here's why I think they're wrong. So what he has to do is not even put their arguments in there. It's not journalism. If you're a journalist, they're barely any of them exist anymore. But if you are a journalist and there are arguments that disagree with the through line of your piece, you put them in and you argue against them, or you put them there and let the reader go, all right, I see these two arguments, I'm going to decide which one I think is right.
You're getting it wrong again. What you do is you get several big bales of straw and then acquire some T-shirts with local music bands on them.
I mean, although I am given to understand that like the most popular section of the New Statesman week in, week out is like Peekaboo, where they where you open the page and then you close it, and then like when you close the page, it's like it's like the image was never there. It's the readers are every week they're just baffled by how that works.
Great for the rereadability of the magazine.
In April 2017, Weiss was plucked from obscurity. Again, Mick, as you said, she wasn't. She was already a presence in the New York media scene. Was plucked from obscurity when the New York Times hired her, along with her boss and mentor at the Journal, Bret Stephens, the Bedbug Stevens, in order to broaden the paper's ideological range following Trump's victory. She had just been handed prime real estate in New York media.
Yeah, we're going to remove one of the fucking blinkers. Guess which one it is.
Famously, no one's heard of the Wall Street Journal. No one's heard of it. No, nobody knows it. Famously, just
I
no
only
one
know
knows.
about the failing Wall Street Journal.
Immediately, Weiss began to highlight what she saw as the intolerances and illiberalism of the political left. In her second column, she wrote about the case of Brett Weinstein, then professor at some college, who had objected to a proposal for an enforced day of absence for white people on campus. Dozens of students
I know it's like, it's kind of trite to bring it up, but like this idea that the left is like capital L liberal, obviously like this is sort of less applicable in America because the political left of America is still capital L liberal. Yeah.
Yes.
But like, it just bothers me, right? Because like you've got like uncapitalized L libertarian left, which is completely different to what these people think it is, and that's kind of what they're trying to get at. But just calling them liberal because that's just everyone who's left wing is liberal. Yeah, okay, cool. I know what politics are.
Is the left a liberal now?
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
Good.
What Weiss naturally backed the professor. Without free speech, she wrote, "What is liberalism about? Debate me, you knave." Over the next year, Weiss wrote about the extreme, unexamined views of some leaders of the 2017 Women's March, who had praised known anti-Semites. She argued against the idea of cultural appropriation. She opposed the attempted cancellation of a conservative speaker, brackets, Ben Shapiro, who some considered...
Yeah, you write one or several tedious fucking books, and all of a sudden people are trying to cancel you. It's just... We hate to see it.
It's Ben Shapiro who was cancelled from being a screenwriter by his lack of talent.
And also, it is at this point when I read the next sentence that I would like to remind you that this is the New Statesman and not, the Times Magazine. The woke revolution was reaching its apogee, says an observer, and Weiss just said no. Her comments landed her on Bill Maher's HBO talk show, a mainstay of the cultural circuit. I read that column and said, "I'm going to make her famous," Bill Maher told LA Magazine in December. Maher, like Barry Weiss, considers himself a liberal who has been left behind by modern American liberalism.
Sorry, what is the cultural circuit?
It's the same shit. It's the cultural circuit. It's like, if are you on the chat shows? It's the same function here in the UK. Like, do you get on the daily politics?
It's where you have to go on Jimmy Kimmel and have your
the
song ruined.
But to call it the cultural circuit is one of the most like barren fucking naming conventions I have ever seen.
Well, isn't it also just a recognition of how people like Harry Lambert think of there's just one culture and it's whatever culture he approves of. Like, and it's like when they when they think about like stuff that's in the Sunday Times Culture magazine, right? If it's not in there, it's not, it's not music or whatever. Like the way, like it goes back to their whole, the whole thing with world music, the bizarre thing where liberal people created this category of music, which means we've discovered that people in Ethiopia also make music. And, like, suddenly that's a category. It's just bizarre, and it was just a way to sell CDs. But it's just crazy. It's like Peter Gabriel tells me that there are a number of black people I've never seen before who make music. That's the vibe of this.
It's also Mick, it's like you've got culture, and that's what we like. And if you don't like that, we've got counterculture for you. And that's the thing that is sort of, like, laughable for you to like. But, it's you rascal you. And then everything else beyond that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and now we come to the profoundly British bit of the profoundly New Statesman bit of the article. Nothing matters as much to the many aspirants of the New York press as the pages of the New York Times. Brackets, the current storm over the paper's coverage of trans issues is yet more evidence of this. No slot is more No slot is more coveted than its opinion section. By 2018, Barry Weiss had, in the eyes of that aspirant class and activists inside the New York Times newsroom, become more than a blot on the paper's masthead. She stood between them and progress with a capital P. This is some...
I'm reminded...
If she wants to fucking progress, just come over here and just fucking become part of the Guardian.
I'm reminded of Dennis Skinner yelling at that journalist about the fact that the journalist, is actually part of this, like, the entire enterprise of politics for some reason.
The journalists who are active on Twitter and are considered cool explains an observer of the New York scene.
No
They're
journalists
political-
are considered cool. No journalists are cool. I am one. I'm not cool. No one who's ever been a journalist is cool. The two things cannot exist in the same space. Stop this shit. It's just not true.
Their top political focus, more so than healthcare or even labor rights, is diversity, equality and inclusion, and trans. And it is exactly on those issues that Barry dissents.
And trans.
And trans.
You can't see me, but I just aged about 100 years during that entire thing.
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm
She
looking
does
forward
some...
to find out what the why is so that we can finally achieve deity.
blah, blah, blah. She does some idiot column that, like, people that, you know, Twitter mobs, blah, blah. You know this. I don't need to read it out.
Apparently she was crushed. Crushed!
Yes.
If only.
All of these top-of-the-class Brooklyn lefties, says one New York journalist, were furious that this person, Barry Weiss, they intimately recognize as a dumber version of themselves, was given all these column inches to say that her generations think what their parents think on race, gender, and Israel, another issue on which Weiss clashed with her contemporaries. Oh, Jesus, this is such bad fucking writing as well. Like, Jesus, how did it make it past an editor? All of our hip friends
New
were...
Statesman.
All of our
You
hip
don't spell
friends...
check a stenographer, Rob. Don't worry about it.
That's true. All of our hip friends were into fashionable anti-Zionism. She had the political views of my dad, says one of them.
Fashionable anti-Zionism.
On the Paris
Yeah.
catwalk this week, it's Gucci with fashionable anti-Zionism.
It's just a phase. You'll grow out of it.
The journalist names a
hell.
Twitter ringleader who regularly assaults Weiss online. He's a nobody and a failure, and she's a success, although he has all the correct opinions. It's really personal for people like that. He's basically impoverished, will never have a proper career. They claim
It
they're
sounds
socialist.
like she's taking this cancellation really badly. It really is. It really sounds like it's just completely ruining any chance of her ever getting a column anywhere ever again.
Also, why is this guy... This guy's describing me again. Fuck. I see myself in this tweet. And I do like it.
Thanks to you, Mick, they now have a sign.
They claim they're socialist or whatever, but all I see is them viciously attacking people.
This is the New Statesman, right? A magazine that was originally started as a left-wing magazine, right? And it's comfortable having the phrase, they claim they're socialist or whatever. Because the worst thing you could be would be a socialist. In the New Statesman. There are so many people who wrote for the New Statesman in the 1930s and 40s who would
be mildly displeased about this.
In the summer of 2020, as the social justice movement boiled over, Weiss quit the New York Times with an open resignation letter that she grandly addressed to the paper's owner. That letter went off like a bomb in American media, says a friend.
Oh.
If only.
No, can't see it. Can't see it. Move on.
I've read that letter. It's just whiny. It's just saying people aren't nice to me online. Why aren't you defending me? Why aren't you paying me more for my column? It's
yeah,
just,
and
it's
incidentally,
just-
she used to attack... Her whole thing is about how colleagues were bullying her. She regularly, before that letter, attacked her own colleagues on Twitter. And her whole thing was people shouldn't be attacking each other in public. It's this classic hypocritical shit.
you could swap in Suzanne Moore or Hadley Freeman for this. It's the exact same stunt. Like it's the exact down to the T the same fucking thing. You know, it's the meme. You know, the I've been cancelled screaming from the television from the papers thing. Blah, blah. By the time she left, Barry Weiss was being openly attacked in the company-wide Slack channels, with co-workers demanding that she was fired. She
She sounds like an asshole. Like, come on.
She is. She did not want to be hounded out of the New York Times, but when she was, she saw an opportunity. It's like, no, she saw an opportunity that when she was hounded out of the New York Times, she could go on the I'm cancelled circuit. That's, it's exact other way around.
She was trying to get fired for about a year before she resigned, and they would not fire her.
That is such a powerful own, like a shitty publication. Don't get me wrong, but that is such a powerful own of like, no, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. You have to suck it up, mate. Go for it.
I started my own thing, Weiss said in December, to close the gap between the reality that people can see with their own eyes and ears and the insistence of putting the narrative, whatever it is that given day, over reality. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with the free press. And now this is some more real Suzanne Moore hours. In her resignation letter, Weiss claimed that intellectual curiosity is now a liability at the Times. Self-censorship, she wrote, had become the norm. If a person's ideology is in keeping with the new orthodoxy, they and their work remain unscrutinized. Everybody else lives in fear of the digital Thunderdome.
I want to go in the
Join
digital
me, Mr.
Thunderdome.
Chapo.
It sounds so good.
Online venom is excused so long as it is directed at the proper targets. Now,
Yes.
Look, Mick, you know more about what it's like to be a reporter of any stripe in this current modern day and age, whatever. But you can just not have a Twitter account or just use it to post pictures of birds and, the occasional, hey, here's this thing I wrote.
There are tons of people. There are tons of people who don't. Yeah, who don't. Like there are tons of like deeply evil people who don't have Twitter accounts. Look at how many times like there's a Sun story that's horrendous, right? And then you discover that Sun reporter is either not on Twitter or has a locked account. They don't care, because they're not into it. They're not trying to do what Barry Weiss is doing, which is like become famous. They're just in their little groove, being evil for the Sun.
Banality of evil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not her fault that she's not as capable or good at her job as one Laura Kunsberg, who simply just turns notifications off and gets on with her day.
Yeah. But what she's doing is engagement farming. She wants the negative attention so she can turn around and say, look how persecuted I am. That's the brand. That's the whole brand. Because now she has a 30,000 plus reader Substack with like a 2.5 million a year annual turnover or profit or whatever the hell it is, but like a lot of money. She wants to build a rival to the New York Times, one of her friends tells me preposterously. The paper has 9.6 million subscribers. Her ambition is not small.
Yeah,
Yet,
she's a megalomaniac narcissist.
No, but she's really going places. Like, she's really, she's broken free of the intellectual constraints and, the liberal left that's been keeping her opinions down. And, she's been getting to grips. So, yet it is Weiss, not the New York Times, who has scored some of the most sought-after interviews in recent months. When Benjamin Netanyahu returned to power as Israel's prime minister, he spoke to Barry Weiss, not America's newspaper of record. And this month, the Free Press has released an audio series with J.K. Rowling, who has not granted any other outlet an interview since becoming a lightning rod in the debate over sex and gender during the summer of 2020.
Rob, I'm pretty sure that I read an interview with J.K. Rowling in The Onion, actually. So
yeah, I think that thing about Barry Weiss is totally fake news. But The Onion got the real scoop there.
Got the deep scoop, yeah.
Love to be a lightning rod that grows and gets bigger and bigger, twisting itself towards the lightning. Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Love this lightning rod idea. Is the lightning rod doesn't scream at the clouds and say, "Come on, strike me."
No, look, sorry, you are just not Zeus pilled. A lightning rod is a rod that is forged from lightning. That's how it works, mate. Right?
Oh god!
And
how
also,
much more have we got left of this?
We're in the we're running towards the closing paragraphs.
I feel like I'm sustaining a head injury.
Let's go. Well, we're all still in our Olympus arc. Let's fucking go.
Yeah. It is as an editor that Weiss has succeeded on Substack. Her site, which was originally known as Common Sense, has built much of its audience on the account of whistleblowers. 2 pieces Barry Weiss published in 2021 by a teacher and a parent concerned with the new teaching around race in New York schools went viral, while the site's most recent scoop was a case manager at a pediatric gender clinic.
Yeah, and by the way, if you just go and quickly check online, you'll find that both these pieces have been fact-checked by people who can be bothered to fact-check them and be found to have many, many lies, including the gender clinic one having a reference to the classic helicopter line, but placed in there as if it were true.
Yeah, it's also really weird. Like, all these dogs in my street just suddenly started perking up and barking. I don't really understand what's going on. The core insight behind Barry Weiss's success, a friend suggests, again, a friend, that's just Barry
bigotry
Weiss.
and hatred and violence. Is that
It's
what they
just
said?
Barry
I assume
Weiss.
it was.
It's just Barry Weiss wearing a chocolate fez and a collar made of marshmallows. Little friendly cut, little, you know, you listen to next week's and you listen back to this one and that's all makes sense. Is that there has been this ideological capture of the institutions and they are rotten with it. One remembers thinking that Weiss's view was misplaced in the 2010s. Russia, China, Trump, climate change, these were the things that mattered. Actually, I was wrong, he reflects now. The ideas Barry Weiss was concerned about have taken over American workplace culture. Weiss, they think, has understood a few key things about this world, while a lot of intelligent people are lost.
It's true. I can't get a minute of work done because of all the children taking puberty blockers in the office. Like,
Also, I'm really glad to see
mean,
that
it's
climate
like,
change is not a thing that matters, whereas, you know, teaching around race and science in schools is a thing that really does.
I mean, it's really starting to affect me in my work life because the emails are now just like 90% pronouns. It's unbelievable. It's unworkable, really.
And the entire censored text of Roald Dahl books. Just for no good reason.
I'm now just picturing Alistair getting emails, but they're all in Morse code using pronouns. So it's like he, him, he, him, just all the way through.
Yeah,
the
completely impenetrable.
Yeah, and the thing that really throws it off is each person has their own pronouns, of course. So that just makes it even less decipherable. You'll get one email that's like he, him, he, him, and then you get another replying to it, which is they, them, they, them.
The most complicated
And,
ones are the she, theys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why did Barry Weiss's most vicious critics hate her? She was the
Truly a mystery for the fucking ages. I am a journalist.
See the
There's
first
no possible
paragraph
way to
and read
divine
on.
this information. So I'm just going to put my own opinion here and not think any more about it.
Isn't it fascinating to read a profile where he's written this as if she never does anything wrong. She is just good and pure.
Yes.
Like,
And also,
he
she knows some deep truth about like the American heartlands and how people really feel, and she's got her finger on the pulse about what matters. And it's, you know, interviews with J.K. Rowling and Benjamin Netanyahu, and I shan't inquire any further.
Yeah,
I mean,
Bibi knows.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I wouldn't even say fascinating, but it's just very instructive to see, like, not even interrogating the very, like, I mean, the guy's fucking said himself the reasons why people hate Barry Weiss. She's a Zionist, she's anti-trans. Like, those are very straightforward things to disagree with anybody about and conceive, you know, that this is very common to hear about.
She also attacks her colleagues constantly. She is self-obsessed. If you read other profiles of her, you find out that she loudly talks about herself constantly in social occasions. She cuts friends out for no good reason. She's a social climber that will stab anyone in the back to get where she wants to be. So, like, she's a reprehensible person. That's why people don't like her. Because she's a horrible
She's the
person.
Jess Phillips of newspapers.
Yeah. Yeah. Although Jess Phillips is also the Jess Phillips of newspapers, so that's difficult.
Yeah,
It's,
but Barry Weiss
it's third
isn't from
person
Birmingham.
versus first person play.
She was the apostate in the New York media, suggests a friend. She was meant to be on their team, as another observer puts it. National Review writers, Trump supporters, and evangelicals are just written off by Weiss's critics. Yeah, I don't understand why, far-right lunatics, and far-right lunatics are written off by her critics instead of, being taken seriously when they say you can't be a Christian in public life anymore. Wait, why are you saying I can't? I just wish gay people were burned to death. No, I just want to be leader of the SNP. Are just written off by Weiss's critic, essentially for class reasons. You see, because it's the elite, it's the leftist elite versus the working class, people who just love the National Review and are evangelical, apparently. But Weiss was part of their social world. She was of their class. She was a writer at the New York Times, the pinnacle, ! The height of media success, !
Until she wasn't.
And she was blaspheming in their generation's name. They tried to make an example of her, but Weiss is increasingly eclipsing them all, although in their world, her success means nothing.
It's okay for her to blaspheme in that world, but you can't write the fuck word in the article, though. That's too much.
It's also like, no, the people who have a problem with this whole system and, the way that the Barry Weisses of this world, or, again, substitute in Hadley Freeman or Suzanne Moore, it's just the same fucking person, It's like, the problems that we have with these people aren't substantive and, have merit in their own right. No, it's just jealousy and some kind of weird you betrayed our hive mind thing that, that makes us really mad. Something irrevocable.
It's just trying to obfuscate very, very obvious things that, this is what, the media does pretty much all of the time, is obfuscate something that is actually quite clear-cut with a bunch of bullshit, which is, whatever the flavour of the month is, currently, Zionism / anti-Zionism and transphobia. So yeah, those slot in nicely to whatever the fuck it is that we're talking about. Whether it's Barry Weiss, whether it's leader for the SNP, whether it's fucking what's going on in schools. It's just this shit over and over and over again. Because to talk about the actual substantive issues of what is happening in politics or local politics, education, would mean we'd actually have to tackle the fucking problems rather than this culture war shit.
Yeah, no, it's fucking incredible. And last paragraph, and then we're done. I promise. Something irrevocable was lost. One acquaintance remembers a different Weiss before she was vilified, before she won. They remember a young. Can we put some, David, in the edit? Can you put some tragic piano or violin behind this? They remember.
It's Jamie. You need to ask. So
they remember a young journalist who just wanted to be Nora Ephron, who hosted literary parties for the New York media in her flat on the Upper West Side, always trenchant in her opinions, but carefree. She hadn't yet paid the price for her views. There was a lightness to her, but Weiss lost that life and built another.
She was one type of dickhead, now she's another type of dickhead. The through line is, she's always been a dickhead.
But now she makes a lot more money.
Yeah, she's now a super rich dickhead.
The best kind.
How terrible! I weep for her.
Oh
God! That article made me so angry the first time I read it, and now it's made me much, much more angry now. Now I've experienced the audiobook version.
Oh man, it's incredible! I can't wait to get cancelled. It sounds so lovely and lucrative.
Yeah,
do you know what?
It's the money.
I think about a lot. If I had that much money, it's like if I had 2 million quid, right? That'd be it. I'd be gone. It'd be like, where's the newsletter gone? He's gone. We never hear of him. The Twitter account is gone. He's just somewhere enjoying his life.
Yeah, gone like a fart in the wind, eh?
Out of the discourse, just gone. That's the dream. Damn. Let's get rich and cancelled.
Speaking of Substack, where can people find the works of the genial cartographer Mick Wright?
brokenbottleboy.substack.com brokenbottleboy.substack.com I do not earn £2.5 million a month or whatever the year.
Yeah.
Are you considering giving $2 million to Barry Weiss? Give it to Mick instead.
I mean, you know.
And then I will make them a huge version of the map and put it outside the offices of every newspaper.
I'm looking forward to your Led by Donkeys arc where this goes up on billboards around the country.
I hate them so much. I hate them so much.
Oh, me too, mate.
I know.
Oh, you mean led by donkeys, the average blokes who all happen to be, you know, the PR officers
Senior
for
admin.
the Syrian White Helmets.
Yeah.
Casual people. But yeah, anyway, do sub to Mick's Substack, so at some point he can buy some nice mother of pearl calipers to measure all the skulls of the related people in UK media.
Yeah. And for us, you can get bonus episodes. They are available now at patreon.com/praxiscast. You can see us do some streams on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/praxiscast on Thursdays and Wednesdays, around about 7-8 o'clock-ish. Check the Twitter, which is at praxiscast as well. And if you would like some merch, it is praxiscast.tmail.com. We have t-shirts, etc., etc. Mick, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
It was nice for you to experience and like really emote the pain of that article alongside us. It's appreciated.
Oh, I do feel like more damaged than usual. So thank you for that.
Always a pleasure, mate.
Comically dusts hands, yeah.
Fuck you, Rob.
And we're not going to embarrass ourselves with a cultural commentariat tonight because we've got the guy on who knows who said what.
Yeah, I'm still holding on to the intercontinental commentariat belt.
Yeah, I know, forever. I think next time what we might do is we might just play a game of Battleships, but with the map. You sunk
so
my
good.
dynasty.
What's Jeffrey Epstein doing on that plane?
Right,
Anyway,
see you
that'll
later,
be
folks.
us.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.